Precious Lord, take my hand, lead me on, let me stand. I am tired, I am weak, and I am worn through the storm, through the night. Lead me on to the light. Take my hand, precious Lord, and lead me home. When my way grows drear, precious Lord, linger near. When my life is almost gone, hear my cry, hear my call, hold my hand, lest I fall. Take my hand, precious Lord, and lead me home. Yeah. When the darkness appears and the night draws near, when the day is past and gone, at the river, Lord, I'll stand, guide my feet, hold my hand, well, take my hand, precious Lord, and lead me home. Way down, way down, way down. Precious Lord, take my hand, lead me on, let me stand. I get tired, I get weak, and I get worn through the storm and through the night. Lead me on to your light. Take my hand, precious Lord, and lead me home. Thank you.
You know, I've shared with you over the years that my mother always admonished me, don't be so loud. Walk with your feet straight and hold your shoulders back. I haven't been able to do any of those simultaneously. But anyway, I shall speak into this microphone because Garfield believes in share and share alike, and I think I may be at the mercy of starting with a cold. But you know me, I'm a real trooper. When the lights go on, I'm cheesing it. But anyway, thank you very much, and welcome to the 28th Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King birthday celebration. 28 years we've been doing this. And I had the privilege of appearing on cable network, and cable is also videoing this event this evening. So I guess Arlingtonians, you'll be able to see it then. But one of the things they asked me was, why did you think you had to do this? And if you turn to your program and the cover, this is when we first started this, and Reverend Charles Grady, he and Paul Jackson and a few other folks, Nan Henderson and myself, and Howard Cohen, when we got together, we met in the parlor of the Unitarian Universalist Church. It's the big church on the corner of Pleasant and Mass Ave, for those of you who do not live here. And we talked about doing something very special in Arlington. And we wondered if it was going to be a success. And Charles said a compelling reason for the observance, according to Reverend Grady, was the almost daily reading of ugly incidents of racial intolerance and violence, and a tendency to strip away hard-won civil rights for minority groups. An annual event honoring Dr. King's memory was one way of responding. And you know what? We're in those times right now, aren't we? We're fighting for those gains that were hard for us to win in civil rights. So of course we should continue on. When you have a program like this, it's something interesting about Dr. King. He didn't live that long. We were fortunate to have him for as long as we did. But what a profound person he was in his memory, his writings, just all of anything that he has done. When you watch it, I don't know what more this man could have done for our nation and for the world. And there are some people that only live for a short while on this earth, and they leave very large footprints for Arlington, for Boston, for the Cambridge academic community. We miss them terribly, but they have left their imprint here with us that remain. And you wonder why, but there are no answers to that. At least I will have to leave the why to someone who are smarter than I am. But Dr. King lived for not a long time. We have quotes, we have programs, we have so much that he has left. But the biggest thing is that he left behind the spirit for us to work with one another, to love one another, to help one another, and just to be good brethren to one another. So I'm hoping that when you leave this evening, you'll have that spirit, and you'll want to leave here, and you'll want to do things that Martin Luther King advised us to do. It reminds me a lot about, when King was in jail, and you say, why did he get thrown in jail? But while he was in jail, didn't he do some writing? He was really spectacular. It's just like the Apostle Paul. When the Apostle Paul was in jail several times, and he did some of his best work when he was writing out of those jails in Rome, writing to the Thessalonians and the Ephesians. But anyway, I digress, don't I? Thank you. Thank you for putting up with that. All right, so we're going to start with a welcome, another welcome, from President and Chair of the Martin Luther King Jr. Birthday Observance Committee, Ian Jackson. And Ian Jackson is Paul Jackson's son. And as I mentioned, Paul Jackson was one of the original people that met at the church and started this whole thing rolling 28 years ago. All right, Ian.
Well, most of you have come to hear another member of my family, Tudo Jackson, who figured out why he was invited. It was all the last name. So I'd like to welcome you all here. And my father was a pastor, like Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s father. So I'd like to welcome you to this celebration. Remember, we're here for 50 years of Medco in Arlington, which gives people an opportunity in Arlington to meet people that are a little different than they are, with different backgrounds, and a good exchange on both sides, I hope. So, with no further ado, I welcome you, and we have the invocation by Shashura Montadeni, if I could attempt that, but not close enough. Sorry about that. I could have.
O divine providence, this assemblage is composed of thy friends who are attracted to thy beauty and are set ablaze by the fire of thy love. Turn these souls into heavenly angels. Resuscitate them through the breath of thy Holy Spirit. Grant them eloquent tongues and resolute hearts. Bestow upon them heavenly power and merciful susceptibilities. Cause them to become the promulgators of the oneness of mankind and the cause of love and concord in the world of humanity, so that the perilous darkness of ignorance, prejudice, may vanish through the light of the Sun of Truth. This dreary world may become illumined. This material learn may absorb the rays of the world of spirit. These different colors may merge into one color, and the melody of praise may rise to the kingdom of thy sanctity. Verily, thou art the omnipotent and the almighty.
Thank you, sir. All right, so as you know, we have a free will offering, and we've disclosed for you our financial report on in your program. I don't know what page that is, but it's the annual report. You can see what we've done with the money that we've collected. We've purchased books for the public library. We've given to the ALS Hope Foundation, the Poets House, the Housing Corporation, the fire victims that were burned out, and at $500 scholarship for a graduate at Arlington High School, and many, many other charities and nonprofits that fit within the realm of the Martin Luther King Birthday Committee. So now, who was we were going to have a little music, yep. Okay. Now, those of you that are collecting the money, take your time. There's no rush. Give these people a chance to reach in your wallet. There's no rush. I don't know what church you all went to. Just take your time. No, see the Baptists? See how slow the Baptists are? Nice quiet offering, checks and $20 bills. And we have a little giving music.
Yes, what a fellowship.
What a joy divine.
Joy divine.
Leaning on the everlasting arms.
It is indeed a privilege to give, right?
Amen.
It is a privilege to give, yes?
Yes.
Oh, man,
They're not happy at this point, I guess.
here we go.
Okay. Thank you.
Pearl, I think you did pretty good because God said he loves a cheerful giver.
Excuse me?
God said he loves a cheerful giver.
He certainly
You look
does.
pretty cheerful. Did you give? God bless you.
Okay, all right. Thank you kindly. Have we finished the collection? Okay. We decided back in March or April that the theme for this year's Martin Luther King celebration would be 50 years of Metco in the town of Arlington. Now, let's see. There were 7 original towns that participated in the Metco program from the beginning. Now I believe they have 37 or maybe 40. But Arlington, Lexington, Lincoln, Brookline, Newton, Braintree, and Wellesley. And the idea was to bring students to racially balance the schools. The schools in Boston were out of balance, so and the schools in the suburbs were also out of balance because there were a majority of blacks in the schools in Boston, a majority of Caucasians in the suburban schools. So the idea was to try to balance the classrooms using this vehicle of METCO. And it was, of course, a good two-way street because, as I've mentioned several times about METCO, it allows the children and the pupils, the students rather, they're children when they're in elementary, they're students when they get to the high school. It just reminds them that there are others around them that have the same talents and the same ambitions and the same concerns that they have. It familiarizes our children in Arlington, our Caucasian children, with the culture of the children from the Boston schools. So it's been a nice two-way street, and the students that came from the overcrowded schools in Boston and came to the Arlington schools and Lexington and Lincoln and all were really getting an outstanding education from #1 schools. And so many of them, as I'm sure Dr. McGuire will tell you, that a great percentage of the graduates from the suburban school in the METCO program go on to 2, 3, and 4-year education. So it is not an easy thing for these students. I tip my hat off to their parents, and I tip my hat off to the students, because some of them, in order to meet the bus and get to the suburbs, they were standing out there at 5 o'clock in the morning. And you know what it's like at 5 o'clock in the morning, especially in the wintertime. But yet they persevered, and it's been a wonderful program. And you'll hear from Jean McGuire, who was the executive director, and you'll hear from Stephen Pereira, who was just retired as the director of the Arlington METCO program, and Margaret Creedle Thomas, who has for the last 4 years has been the director here. So, in order to get into the spirit of how important that this program has to be, I thought what we should do is we should start off with a proclamation from the legislature. I have in my notes someplace here, but it's not that important, about here it is. The Mass Department of Elementary and Secondary Education oversees the grant for METCO. Chapter 76, Section 12A of the Mass General Laws is what supports the METCO system. And so I thought the best thing we should do is to start off with the people who sponsor the METCO program. And I called Senator Donnelly's office, and I called Sean Gobley's office, and I called David Rogers. I called everyone. And they did come forward, and they have a proclamation. Gentlemen, Paul Schleckman, I asked Paul if he would come and receive this on behalf of the Arlington Public Schools. Paul is the chairperson of our esteemed Arlington School Committee.
Thank you, Pearl. And first, before I read the proclamation, I hope you don't mind if I just say a couple of words. If anybody has visited my office in the State House, when you go in, you'll see a large picture of Martin Luther King on my wall. And I have it on the wall for a couple of different reasons. One, I believed in Martin Luther King's position on civil rights. I strongly believed in Martin Luther King's position on basic human rights, but I also very strongly believed on Martin Luther King's position on wage and working rights for workers. And if he was living today, what would he be saying about the top 1% in wage inequality in this country when we have so many people that don't have the opportunities to make a living? So I think this resolution in the METCO program is appropriate because it gives an opportunity for many young men and women, regardless of color, to have the opportunities that we've had in a place like Arlington. So I support the METCO program. I hope we all continue to believe in what Martin Luther King has taught us about making sure everyone has an opportunity and making sure we fight to make sure that 99% have the opportunities and that every single man and woman that works in this country 40 hours a week can have enough money to raise a family. And that's what Martin Luther King would believe. So with that, I'm going to read this resolution, and I had Sean and Dave are going to help me out here because I forgot my glasses. And as I'm getting up in age, I have a hard time reading without them. So let me start and have these younger fellows help me. Whereas the Town of Arlington METCO program began in 1966, and on January 21st, 2016 is celebrating 50 years of successful integrating Boston students into the Arlington Elementary, Middle, and High School, and whereas the METCO program was established to provide enhanced educational opportunities for participating students to reduce the racial isolation of suburban school districts and to reduce segregation in city schools, and
whereas METCO is the second oldest voluntary inter-district school assignment program in the country dedicated to increasing diversity and reducing racial isolation and depends on the collaboration of both urban and suburban schools to create educational opportunities which are still needed today. And whereas METCO has been a vehicle for change in the town of Arlington as the students from the city of Boston are an integral and vibrant part of the fabric of the Arlington schools and share in the successes of a level 1 ranking by the Commonwealth. And whereas throughout the years, Arlington METCO students have been recognized for their leadership, including being elected by their peers as junior class, senior class, and student council presidents, and
whereas 95% of Arlington METCO students graduated and went on to some form of higher education, with the remaining 5% going into the workforce or joining the military. And whereas the Arlington METCO program is greatly valued in the community and has created access and opportunity while also fostering rich cross-cultural experiences. And whereas the Arlington METCO program fosters and develops our future leaders of tomorrow, now therefore be it.
finish the whole thing.
There we go. Resolved that the Massachusetts General Court hereby commends the Arlington METCO program for 50 years of excellence and further extends its sincere best wishes for continued success, and be it further resolved that a copy of these resolutions be transmitted forthwith to the clerk of the Senate to the Arlington METCO program. So, congratulations.
Thank you, gentlemen. And thank your administrative assistants and all that. Leela, I don't have her last name, but she worked so hard staying in touch with me so that we could get this accomplished. So I really appreciate it. And I think that's a very proper way for us to start this tribute to METCO. We are now going to hear more from the Myrtle Baptist Church Inspirational Chorale, and then we'll start with the awards that we're going to present to outstanding achievers in the METCO program. All righty. Let's give them a warm let's give them a warm welcome, please.
Good evening. Can you hear me? Yeah. Okay. I just wanted to take a moment to congratulate Metco on their 50 years of service and success. This is a very meaningful opportunity for a lot of people who have not had the opportunity to attend quality schools. So let's give us a round of applause. And I want to bring you greetings from the Myrtle Baptist Church, where the Reverend Brandon Crowley is the pastor. You might say, well, gee, the corral is much smaller than the picture. Well, that's because we've been spread quite thin this weekend. We've had 2 funerals, 2 services yesterday, and a lot of things going on. But these are our brethren here, and they're here to represent, and I think they're doing very well. Let me introduce them. You may applaud. This is Stephen Cooper. Walter Cooper. And back on our bass, we have Doug Rich. And on percussion, Miles Wyckoff. And they're very dedicated individuals. They have a wonderful spirit. They have a passion for the music ministry, and I appreciate their sacrifice this evening. They could be at home with their families having cocoa and marshmallows, but we're out here, and we're glad to be here, too. This is a beautiful facility. Let's applaud the facility. You don't know. It's wonderful. Look at all that woodwork. I'll take some of this home with me. Okay. All right, we're going to do one selection, and we'll come back for a sing-along later on, okay? You may applaud. You may clap on the offbeat. That would be most appreciated. And you may stand, too. And actually, all the songs I'm going to sing along, so if you recognize the chorus, join in. The Lord is blessing us, right?
Right now.
Right now.
The Lord is blessing us in this place. And here we invite you to sing the chorus for any kind of song you may know.
I'm on my way. Dr. Kathleen Bodie is the superintendent of schools in Arlington, and I'm going to ask Dr. Bodie if she would come to the microphone and present the Outstanding Achievers Award and Community Recognition Award to Dr. Jean McGuire, the Executive Director of METCO, Stephen Pereira, retired METCO Director, and Margaret Kriegel Thomas, the METCO Director for the past 4 years in Arlington. Okay?
Thank you, Pearl. Okay, we'll let you be in. Let me know. Well, thank you, Pearl. You make this evening very special for all of us, and we all want to be here, and I think a large part is to you. So good evening, everyone. Besides this evening wanting to honor in the memory of Martin Luther King for his work and inspiration, tonight we are also celebrating 50 years of METCO in Arlington. As mentioned earlier, Arlington was one of the 7 communities that accepted students when the program began in 1966. It has taken the support of the community to sustain this successful program for these 5 decades. While Arlington can be proud of the role they played as one of the original communities opening their doors to students from Boston, it has certainly been a mutually beneficial relationship. Both the Boston and Arlington students have been enriched each other by the diversity of cultures they have shared. While it takes a community to support and educate its students, there are certain individuals whose work and leadership have made the METCO program the success that it has been in the greater Boston area and in Arlington in particular. And we are going to be honoring 3 of those individuals this evening. But before I introduce our recipients this evening, I would ask you if you would join me in a moment of silence for Christopher Lanford, who died a week ago. Christopher was a METCO bus monitor in Arlington this past year, as well as a teaching assistant in both Hardy and Bishop. And in the short time that he has been here, he's made a lasting impression in the lives of many children and in the lives of the colleagues he worked with. So if you would, please. I have the very special privilege of introducing Jean McGuire, who I think all of you would agree is probably the best known icon of the METCO program. And she has been the executive director and involved in this program since 1973. In that capacity, she has afforded educational opportunities to thousands of urban students by providing access to quality suburban public schools. The METCO program continues to enhance the educational experience of suburban students in over 190 schools located in eastern and western Massachusetts. It's a lot of schools. Since the 1960s, Jean has been a powerful advocate for breaking down barriers and creating opportunity for all. As a teacher, she witnessed firsthand how predominantly African American schools were often lacking even basic supplies. She was inspired to fight segregation, advocate for more African American teachers, and help students access a more enriching educational experience. Jean was one of the first African American females elected to the Boston School Committee and has served as a board member with numerous other organizations, including the Boston Children's Museum, Community Change, and Black Educators Alliance of Massachusetts. Jean attended Howard University for 3 years and holds a BS from Boston State College, a master's in guidance from Tufts University Graduate School of Arts and Sciences, and an honorary doctorate of humane letters from Salem State College. When Jean was interviewed about her work in the award-winning documentary Eyes on the Prize, she said, "We all have the ability to do something good. We just need the proper resources to help make our goals and abilities possible." And Jean has been, for many, many decades, one of the greatest resources we have in Boston to further these goals. Jean McGuire.
Thank you. This also means I'm getting old. I'm a depression baby. I'll be 85 in April, and I have to give credit to all the people who made me what I am. All the teachers, from kindergarten on in 22 school systems. My dad was an Episcopal minister with 8 kids, and we always got a parish house with 2 bedrooms. And I went to school in Stoughton and Canton and Boston and Washington, D.C. So I got to know urban schools, rural schools, and segregated schools, and have worked most of my life to make sure that the things that I saw in the Boston Public Library at the end of the European theater part of the war, before the United States troops put their efforts into the Pacific, of what had happened in the Holocaust. And my class at Latin school was taken to the Boston Public Library, and we saw what Eisenhower brought back from Lidice and Dachau, Bergen-Belsen, and the inhumanity which created the Atlantic slave trade and slave trades before that in Greece and Rome, the denial of the vote to people who were equal in every capacity, that until, say, women got the right to vote in 1920, and the elimination of the poll tax, which my father fought for, let me know that there's always something that all of us are going to benefit from if we all work together. We now, all of us, have to face climate change. I didn't think we were going to have any snow this winter. I said, real global warming. We got a couple of inches of snow. But when I was a kid, there was snow in November, like 2 feet of it. Children don't know that anymore, except for the storm of '78. But I do know this, that most of what we face today, whether it's based upon racism, classism, sexism, ageism, it's going to affect all of us. And the children in Metco are ambassadors. They get on that bus, which I wish was two-way, like the St. Louis program, where the children from St. Louis go to the suburbs, and the children from the suburbs have come into St. Louis. And although it shrunk some, it's still an effective a model for what you need in the United States to prepare your children to lead the world. You have to have experiences that make you think about who you are in relation to others. A little boy in Lincoln once said to me, well, if you don't have any Metcos for friends, then you don't know that white kids can't all spell, and we don't know that all black kids can't sing and dance, because he hit on the stereotypes right away. But it made me think about how children view this program. There have been over 12,000 students who've gone through the Metco program. Many of the students who graduate from Metco, about 89% of them go on to 2- and 4-year colleges. We have a higher percentage of children, including those here in Arlington, who not only go to college but graduate. We have many, many of our students who have run for office. 7 of the principals in Boston are Metco graduates, at least. And I hope that one of the things we've learned is that we're all in this together. And what happens to one of us happens to all of us. That we are each other's magnitude and bond. And there's no way we can avoid that. And my memories of what I saw when I walked into the front door of the McKim building, piles of gold teeth, bags of hair, children's shoes, the detritus of fascism can happen again. And one of the best ways to avoid that is to have an educated electorate. And I would hope that you would work with some of us to restore to the city of Boston the right of citizens to vote for their school committee. The capital of Massachusetts is the only city in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts where people who have lots of children and plenty of bills have no voice. They have an appointed school committee. The day there's a black mayor, there'll be an elected school committee.
All right, let me read it. Glasses back on here. The annual Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. Birthday Celebration Committee, Arlington, Massachusetts, Community Recognition Award presented to Dr. Jean McGuire, Outstanding Influence as Executive Director, Metco, Community Advocate, Educator, and School Committee. In celebration of the 50th anniversary of Metco in Arlington, Metropolitan Council for Educational Opportunities, Inc. Signed, Ian Jackson.
Thank you. And we have a paper right here, so this way you can remember this evening, everyone's going to get a paper right. And this, yeah.
She's getting, you can tell what she's getting.
Yeah. Everyone is going to get a book, Misremembering Dr. King, written by Jennifer Yanko. Jennifer said she's a very close friend of yours. She's met you. So she wanted you. Actually, I only bought the books for the graduates, but I bought some more because, because she wanted you to have this book. And we have a tradition here in Arlington, the Martin Luther King program. We give books that are written by Arlington residents. But this is not so far off because Jennifer Yanko lives in Medford, and I don't know if a lot of you people know, but Arlington is part of the Mystic Valley NAACP, which is Arlington, Medford, Malden, Everett, and Everett. Who did I leave out? Winchester and Winchester. So this is, and Woburn, and that's right, Mickey and Woburn. So there you are. I would give you, I put this in a nice bag.
I have a bag.
Your bag.
I'm a teacher, I always have a bag with me.
But unfortunately, I didn't want to break the bank, and the bag is not very reliable. Okay.
Thank you, Arlington. You're the greatest and the first.
You'll be right.
Oh, okay.
Thank you, Jean. Our next recipient for outstanding achievement is Steve Pereira. Steve has been a Metco director here in Arlington for 32 years. He has since retired in the last few years. Steve was born in Boston, but now lives in Brockton, and in fact, for many years did commute here from Brockton, which is quite a dedication from him to us. In addition to being Metco director, he was for many years the president of the Arlington Administrators Association. Steve continues to stay involved in many ways. Currently, he serves as president of the Massachusetts Partnership for Diversity in Education, often known as MPDE, and is an adjunct faculty member of EDCO's Empowering Multicultural Initiatives ACMi course. While in Arlington, he served as president of the METCO Directors Association and is one of the long-standing members of the Massachusetts Alliance of Portuguese Speakers Board of Directors. There's more boards. He's also served on many other boards, including this past fall, he was nominated and elected to the Board of Directors for METCO Inc. He is on the board of Community Change and the National Black Doll Museum of History and Culture in Mansfield. In addition, he has been co-teaching White People Challenging Racism in Wellesley and Cambridge and has been doing that since 2012. And he is the first person of color selected to co-facilitate this 5-week course. Steve holds a BA from Boston College and a master's in education from Antioch University. And besides his many activities as he continues to remain involved in, he does take time off sometimes. And in doing so, he likes to travel and be on a beach. He also loves music and is an automobile enthusiast. And one I didn't know, he plays in a professional bowling league. So Steve is a very proud second-generation Cape Verdean American and has always felt compelled to give back to his community, which he so ably does. Steve? Want to give you this plaque in memory of today's celebration, Martin Luther King Celebration Committee Recognition Award for 32 years of outstanding leadership as METCO Director in the Arlington Public Schools. In celebration of the 50th anniversary of METCO in Arlington, the Metropolitan Council for Educational Opportunities, dated the 18th of January, signed by Ian Jackson, Chairperson.
Thank you,
I also get a paperweight. You spare no expense.
Thank you. I want to thank the committee. I want to thank the town of Arlington for recognizing me for this award tonight. But you know what? I have always heard when people get recognized, they always thank the people who are really on the front lines doing a lot of the work. And I really think that when I hear the expression that we are lifelong learners, it's true. Because the 6 students here that are alumni of the Arlington Public Schools METCO program, I've learned a lot from. And also, I want to say that there's an expression, that's what friends are for. I have a friend, I'm not sure if she's still here. Yes, she is, I see her. And I want to thank her because she's a very unselfish person and always puts the needs of others before herself, and she never gets any recognition that she deserves. And she's one of the people who really inspired me to be president of the Arlington Administrators Association, because at the time, all of the administrators, the principals were, and I remember, if anybody remembers Bernie Walsh, he had silver hair. And he said he was the fair-haired boy when he first came to Arlington. And when all of the principals who were older than me moved on, moved on, retired, they looked at me and they said, well, would you like to be the president of the union? And I said, no, I don't think so. I said, I don't have any union experience. And I really didn't. I mean, you know what you know, and you also know what you don't know. And they said, well, you're probably the next senior most person in line to do this. And I wouldn't have done it without the support of my good friend, Kate Cremens-Basbas, who's sitting in the audience over here. Kate had union experience before, and she says, don't worry, I'll prop you up. I'll make you look good. She says, I'll help you. Do it. So I did it. I stuck my neck out into an area which was not in my comfort zone and took on a responsibility, and I'm very glad that I did, because it put me in touch with a lot of legal situations that I wasn't even aware of, and it benefited the other administrators within the district. So I really thank you, Kate, and I want to thank the 6 students that I also learned from, and thank the town of Arlington very much for this honor. Thank you again.
Our next awardee this evening is Margaret Credle-Thomas, who is the current Arlington Medco director. She succeeded Steve. This is her 3rd year as director, and during her tenure here, she has gained such deep respect from all of the students in the Medco program, as well as the teachers and administrators who work with her daily. Prior to coming to Arlington, Margaret served as the Medco specialist in the Wayland Public Schools, assistant Medco director in the Lexington Public Schools, and interim Medco director for the Brookline Public Schools. And we have benefited from all of these experiences. She has also been involved in anti-racist education, having served as an Empowering Multicultural Initiatives facilitator. This is EMI facilitator for the last 10 years. EMI works to increase cultural sensitivity and instructive skill among educators by providing graduate level courses to teachers and administrators in multicultural and anti-racist education and effective teaching. Margaret serves on our the Superintendent's Diversity Committee in Arlington, and has helped us move forward in many of our initiatives. Prior to these other experiences, she has also worked as a school social worker, adjustment counselor, and as an adjunct professor at Wheelock College and the Urban College of Boston. Ms. Thomas holds an undergraduate degree from University of Massachusetts, Boston, a Master of Science in Social Work from Simmons College. And by her own statement, she says that the light of her life are her husband, Alex, of 18 years, and her 14-year-old son, AJ. Margaret? And Margaret's sister is here this evening to accompany her for this award. Hi, Teresa. So Margaret? Hi. All right. So, the annual Reverend Martin Luther King Birthday Celebration Committee gives you this Community Recognition Award, and is presented to Margaret Credle-Thomas, leader, advocate, educator, and mentor, Medco Director, Arlington Public Schools, in celebration of the 50th anniversary of Medco in Arlington Metropolitan Council for Educational Opportunities, dated the 18th day of January, 2016, signed Ian Jackson. And a little memento. Okay.
Thank you so much. I want to thank the committee, and I want to thank Arlington for this award. You know, everybody kept saying, what are you going to say? What are you going to say? And I was like, I don't know what I'm going to say. One of the things that I realized as I even go over my resume is that I believe in Medco. I mean, I've worked in various towns. Even though I've done different things, I've worked at Year Up, I've always come back to Medco because this has been home, even though I wasn't a Medco alum. So I've always been on this side. So when I think about who I am and what Medco means to me, I think of myself as a gardener. So the reason why I think of myself as a gardener is because I look at the students as coming in with gifts. So sometimes I have students that already had seeds planted in them, so I'm a waterer. Or sometimes, there's weeds and I'm pulling the weeds out from the students. Or sometimes they're budding, but you know what? They need some more love. So I look at myself as a gardener for students. And I have seen what MECO can do for students who have come through this program. As been stated before, we've had graduates who are doctors, lawyers, own their own businesses. And so that's why I believe in this program. I guess I will always be a gardener for the MECO program. And one of the things that I think of is a Maya Angelou quote, and this is what sums up who I am. She says that my mission in life is not merely to survive, but to thrive, and I'm here to thrive, and to do so with passion. And I love the MECO program, and I do it with passion and compassion. I have compassion for my students. I listen to their stories in my office. I have Kleenex, I rub backs. But at the end of the day, once I can dry some tears and see them to go on, that means success for me. And you sometimes have to do it with humor. When they say, well, I didn't do that paper. Well, why didn't you do the paper? You have to put a little humor into it sometimes for students, because sometimes we make it too serious. And the last and not least, and you got to do it with some style. You like my hat? Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Bodie. And thank you, Jean and Steve and Margaret, for taking care of the children from Boston that come to Arlington, and for introducing the children of Arlington to the Boston students. And I'm sure when all is said and done, they realize that they're all pretty much the same. They're all trying to do the same thing, get a 4-year scholarship to a college, enjoy school, play sports, and so forth and so on. I see them enjoying one another's company, and that's a wonderful sight to see. Now we have the recognition of METCO graduates. And I'm going to ask them if they would come up on the stage. Cindy Lowe, Natalie Gill-Minsa, Trevor Talley, James Fortis, James Jackson, and Lakota Samuels. Look at you all. It's good to see you too. Hi, Trevor. How are you? Good. Hi, guys. I know Natalie and I know Cindy, and these gentlemen I have met through various emails and telephone calls and messages and so forth and so on. And I know they must be saying to themselves, well, this woman, just relax. We're going to get there. We will be there. She will just relax. But the fact of the matter is, I do get a little nudgy when these programs come. But the fact of the matter is I didn't want them to miss this opportunity for us to recognize them as achievers. They have all done outstanding work as students in Arlington. They've gone on to further their education. They've held positions of leadership, class presidents and student council. They just were such a blessing to the town of Arlington. I promised them that they wouldn't have, do I have to talk? Do I have to talk? No. But then I grabbed Natalie, and she was very gracious about it. And I said, would you speak for your peers that have graduated from Arlington High School? So what I would like to do is just present them with their plaques and their various gifts, and then Natalie will say a few words for the group. But I just want to say I'm so very, very proud of these graduates that are here with us. I did not select them. Mr. Pereira, who stays in touch with the graduates, is the one who said, I can get you some young people. And so here they are. Just give them another round of applause. Yeah. It couldn't have been easy coming to Arlington as a second grader or a fifth grader or whenever they joined us. It must have been, as one of the gentlemen told me, it was culture shock. But they persevered, and I just love them, and I love their spirit, and I love their heart. And you know, when some of them started METCO, the parents in Boston, their parents were a little bit concerned about sending their children to Arlington because there was a little undertone in regards from people who didn't quite understand the spirit of METCO. And there was some conversation about we're spending our tax money to build an addition onto the high school because we're bringing children in from another area. And so I thank the parents for understanding, for supporting their children and their students, and we have overcome that, haven't we? We more than welcome the METCO students. We welcome students of all colors and ethnicity because Arlington is a #1 school system, and so we know how we're supposed to behave. We do not have many adults of color that can set an example for the students. So now the state has decided that they are going to try to do an end around on this, and they're introducing the faculty and the administrators to something called cultural competency. And this is I don't know what the state is doing, but I know what we need to do. We need to have a good month or two really intensive study on looking at all of our own biases that we bring to the classroom and that we bring to the principal's office that makes us not quite want to hire people of color. So it's not that these folks are racist. It's just that we all have our little biases. And so now this cultural competency, which I understand Arlington is doing something with it, but it needs to be a really, really in-depth workshop and discussions and people of color to lead it. And I'm hoping that we'll go down that road here in Arlington. So, let's see what we have here. I did have these in alphabetical order. But, so, you hear the tearing? I should have bought those $3 bags. It's only 10 or 12 people. I mean, I saw. And the lady at playtime, she said, "What are you putting in those, dear?" This is, I just happened to pick James Fortes, and it says the annual Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Birthday Celebration Committee Community Recognition Award, Arlington, Massachusetts, presented to James Fortes, star graduate with outstanding leadership and influence in celebration. You didn't know that about you, huh? We do good stuff here. In celebration of the 50th anniversary of METCO in Arlington. METCO, of course, the Metropolitan Council for Educational Opportunities Incorporated, presented on this day, the 18th day of January 2016, and it's signed by our chairperson, Ian Jackson. Everyone will get this, and we have also, for everyone this evening, of course, you've seen these, the paperweights that say the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Birthday Observance Committee, Arlington, Massachusetts, honors James Fortes, class of 2008, president. On the 5th, yes, Clay was class president. Yes. You were too, right? All these kids. On the 50th anniversary of METCO in Arlington, given January 18th, 2016. We also have a book that I hope you can use or pass it on to someone, but this was written by a woman who is quite a civil rights advocate, Miriam Stein, and her book is called Make Your Voice Matter with Lawmakers. I thought since we had lawmakers here, and our guest speaker is Tito Jackson, who is the Boston Counselor, it would be appropriate to give you a book such as this, and Miriam has a lovely message here for you. And also, Jennifer Yanko's book, Misremembering Dr. King. And she has also wrote a very lovely inscription for you kids. You're not kids, you're adults. They need to stop calling you kids. Whatever works. So all of you will receive this. If either any of you would like to step to the microphone, that's fine. Natalie, you're going to say a few words. And Natalie was the junior class president and the senior class president? Yeah, okay, there you go. Also, also in your program, there's just a short description of what these young people are doing at this point in time. There's a longer version that's in the atrium there in the town hall cases. So if you, when you come up to pay your taxes, take a few moments and read about our kids. All righty? So, Natalie, would you like to say a few words? And anyone else? You're more than welcome. Don't everyone say aye at once.
Good evening, everyone. A great hand of applause to you all for filling up this auditorium today. It's great to know that Arlington still, puts such a great effort into investing in diversity efforts, into remembering Martin Luther King Jr. And so I'm very appreciative of being here today. And I don't know if I can speak for everyone, but I'm sure everyone really appreciates this honor today to be recognized for the time we spent in the Arlington community. It takes a village to raise a child. And there are so many members of this audience here that were members of my village. My mother and father are here. Wave your hands, Amelia, Garfield. My husband, Kwame. Steve Pereira, Jean McGuire,
Kate Cremens-Basbis, Judy Bond, and several others played a really big role in making sure that I particularly felt welcome and supported and advocated for in the Arlington community. And it means a lot to have had these folks be a part of my life. I've kept in touch with many of them, and I think one of the things when I was in the Arlington Public Schools, I thought about, being different and coming in and challenging the town and challenging my classmates. And so I'm going to borrow from Shonda Rhimes. She talks about being first, only, different, and how it's okay to be first, only, and different. So I think someone told me I was the first class president represented from Metco. I ran for class president in junior year, and somehow I won, and senior class president again. And I used that platform to try to push the envelope and challenge my school system to increase diversity efforts around curriculum and in hiring diverse teaching staff. And I was happy to hear today that Arlington now has some teachers of color, which is awesome. So I'll give you a round of applause from that. I graduated in 1999, and I don't think there were any teachers of color when I was there, so I'm very happy to see that you're growing and changing and being more diverse and putting investment into that. So I wanted to just leave with a couple of words of challenge for you. Diversity is a journey, it's not a destination. So it's really important. I mean, here I'm probably preaching to the choir. You're here, you care about Martin Luther King Day, you care about bringing more diversity into your town. So it's important as advocates for diversity that you call and phone a friend that might not be here today and tell them what you saw today. If you've ever had a Metco student that you've been able to interact with, whether it's watching them play in the orchestra or watching them on the sports team or inviting them over for dinner, if that meant something to you and you grew from that experience, or you think your community grew from that experience, remember Metco. I know Metco struggles for funding every year, and I'm not sure where we're at right now, but I want to put a word in for Metco. I know we were cut for funding in February of last year, I believe, under the current governor. So if Metco means something to Arlington, I encourage you to consider to call in and make your voice known as citizens of this community to support Metco, so you can have more and more years of students and support and bring more diversity into the community. So thank you.
Is Mr. Mensah here?
Yes, my husband. I did. I got married in August 2015, and Kwame Sarpo Mensah, you can stand, it's my hubby. So he's supporting me for the next 20 years, 30 years, 40 years into the future, as far as I can live, as long as I can last. Thank you all so much for the recognition. This is not mine.
Anyone else? Anyone else? Anyone else wish to speak? Okay.
So I was one of the people, Pearl goes to my church, so I get the nudging a lot, but it's all good, it's all out of love. But I was one of the people that said, I don't have to speak, right? Don't make me speak. I actually was an Arlington High graduate in 1991. The oldest on the stage. Everyone. No. I went to Arlington from kindergarten through 12th grade. I started in kindergarten. I was a little young. I'm a kindergarten teacher now, so I understand that there's an age where, or there's a point in the year where you cannot start kindergarten, or you're not supposed to, because of your age. You have to be a certain age, and they told my mother that, and my mother said, Tester, do whatever you need to do. My kid is starting in kindergarten in Arlington. There was a wait list then, and I know the wait list is amazingly long now, but I just wanted to step forward because it's important for me to say, as an Arlington Metco graduate, that the reason that I'm in the classroom today as a teacher, a lot of that has to do, yes, from the nurturing of my mom, who always pushed me out of love and, let me know that I could be and do anything, no matter what anybody said to me. And I try to impart that to my students. It's very important to me that they understand that. But one of the reasons that I'm in the classroom today is because of some of the teachers that I had here in Arlington. Miss Budd was my kindergarten teacher, and I realize I give a lot of the same looks and I have a lot of the same sayings that I pull out of my bag of tricks every now and again. And I understand she passed away a few years ago. Her husband just passed away. But the legacy lives on of some of the teachers. Miss Powers, who was one of my high school English teachers and encouraged me. She encouraged my love for the English language and my love for Shakespeare and the classics. And a lot of the experiences that I had here really impacted me to the point that I wanted to make that kind of positive impact in the life of children in my classroom. So I just wanted that to be known, that the impact of METCO, the impact lives on beyond, what you see just by seeing us, beyond what you know of us from those of you who had kids that went to school with us, that the legacy does live on, and we do use that legacy to impart, to make a positive impact in our communities wherever we might be, and for me, on children moving forward, because I want them to have what I had. And so I just wanted that to be known, and thank you so much for honoring us tonight and letting us know, like Natalie said, how important you think that METCO is, and thank you for believing in the METCO program, because it does make an impact that lasts long beyond our attendance in school.
That's right, yours came out of the bag. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Congratulations. Congratulations. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, hold it from the bottom. Thank you very much. Thank you for coming. Thank you for all that you've done for us. Now, Adam Chaplain, who is our town manager, is going to introduce our guest speaker. And as I mentioned before, we selected Councilor Tito Jackson because he is a METCO graduate from the Brookline Public School System. So he will be giving us our address. Adam, remind me, I have a gift for Pearl.
Oh, great. Thank you. Good evening, everybody. I have to start by saying I feel so lucky to be able to work and live in a town like Arlington that comes out and supports an event like this, that supports the METCO program. And I also have to say that I feel very lucky to have a town that has the police chief, Fred Ryan, that it does, that's a past honoree. And he's so committed to community policing and really integrating the department that he has a number of officers here tonight, Sergeant Gallagher, Officers Milner and Conroy. And if you have a chance, say hi to them tonight. They're here just to be part of the event and really integrate into the community. So thank you for being here. So that said, I'm very honored that Pearl and the committee asked me to introduce Councilor Jackson tonight. Councilor Jackson is a lifelong resident of Roxbury's Grove Hall neighborhood and is the son of Herb and Rosa Jackson, two beloved community activists. And as the District 7 City Councilor, he currently represents all of Roxbury and parts of the South End, Dorchester, and Fenway neighborhoods. So Councilor Jackson was first elected to the Boston City Council in March of 2011 in a special election, and then he was re-elected the following November for a full 2-year term. And that November in 2013, 75% of the electorate called upon Councilor Jackson to serve the people of District 7 and represent them in Boston City Hall. So currently, Councilor Jackson serves as chairman of the Boston City Council's Committee on Education, and he is vice chairman of the Committee on Government Operations. The councilor remains civically engaged with the community that raised him. He encourages young people to get involved in the civic process as a way to make a difference in their community, ultimately linking pride in one's community to lower violence, homelessness, and poverty rates. Additionally, the councilor is an active leader in youth development programs such as Citizen Schools and Anytown, the Leadership Initiative. And he sits on the board of multiple organizations, including Heading Home, Global Citizen Circle, and Boston Ballet. So please join me in welcoming Boston City Councilor Tito Jackson.
Thank you so much. I actually didn't know if I should get on the stage because, as you can see, there was a little note on the stage that might have been to me. It says no heavy equipment up and down the stairs, so I actually did not know how I should get on the stage. I am very, very happy to be here tonight. First, I want to give a couple of shout-outs. I have family members in the audience. I have 2 of my nephews. One, Amani, who's actually going to be, what year are you, brother? Okay, he's a freshman at Arlington High School. Let's give it up for him. My nephew, Justin Brown, as well as my sister, Akila Jackson. I also want to thank my cousin, Chair Ian Jackson. He's a cousin. He's a brother from another mother. That's the other side of the family that, no one talks about that, okay? It's all good. I also want to give a huge shout out to my friends in the legislature, Representative Sean Garbley, Representative Dave Rogers, Senator Ken Donnelly, also Sheriff Katusian was here, the big guy in the back, and also a personal family friend, Michael Brown, who's a resident of this wonderful, wonderful town. I'd also like to give a huge shout out to the Board of Selectmen and women, Selectmen Byrne, Curo, Dunn, Greeley, Mahone, and your awesome school committee with Chair Schlickman. So for those of you who thought Michael Jackson's brother was coming tonight, I am so sorry, and I saw the bass in the back, but I don't play the bass. I just want to let y'all know that. So before I go on and jump into my remarks, I just want to take a second to honor a matriarch of our community. Jean McGuire is, as Stevie Wonder noted in a song, she's a bad mama jamma. She really is the matriarch of MECO, but also she's the first black woman to serve on the Boston School Committee. And remember, let's give it up for her. And she served at a time that was not so pleasant on the Boston School Committee. She served at a time in the city of Boston that was not so pleasant. She's a fighter, but she's also a visionary. And she said to me, as the amazing students from the second best MECO program in the state. Okay, I'm sorry about this. There's a wrong crowd for this. I'm sorry about that. But I did go to Brookline, so I have to favor them. But as Natalie spoke, she nudged me, Jean did, and she said, "That's why I sleep well at night, because of the success of those amazing young people and the great things that they're doing coming out of the MECO program." And let's just give it up for them one more time and the great work. I also saw Governor's Counselor Marilyn Devaney. I know your town well because of one of the historic sites in your town. It's one that many of us visit. My friend Carrie Bowie and I were talking about it earlier. It is historic in this region. It is called Blue Ribbon. And they do some great, great things. If you got brothers driving out all the way from Boston to get what they do at Blue Ribbon, you know great things are happening there. But I also want to note, and we heard the great work that METCO has done for students of color who come out here. We've heard the great education that they received. We've heard the leadership skills and the ability to articulate those leadership skills and the great success that they've had. But I think we forget that METCO is a two-way street. METCO is a program that not only enhances the lives and gives opportunities to the young people who are coming from Boston, but it enhances the lives and gives opportunity and real-world learning for the young white kids who are out in towns such as Arlington. And also, historically speaking, what you need to remember is that actually METCO saved your kids from getting on a bus and going 45 minutes into the city of Boston. Because folks need to, there was one person who clapped in the back, I thank you so much for that. But folks need to remember that there are cities and towns, St. Louis, Louisville, where federal judges demanded cross-municipality desegregation. What that means, Arlington, is that your students could have been going to the Trotter, the Templety, they could have been in school in Roxbury, Dorchester, or Mattapan. And because your forefathers signed up for a program like METCO, you know what happened? Your town is a town where you were able to have a localized school system. And so that's what 50 years of METCO means. Not only do we have greatness that has happened here, but also that affected your tax base, and it also helped your children and the predictability of your education. So I just want us to take a little pause and understand that METCO has been a two-way street, and that street has been a wonderful, greatly paved street on both sides. Tonight, I think it's important that I introduce myself. The topic that I'm going to be speaking on tonight, Arlington, is the future is calling. Our time is now, our chance is now. The only question is, how will you answer the call? So I actually am blessed, absolutely blessed. I was born in 1975. I was born in Boston. It's Boston Medical Center now. It's Boston City Hospital. And I stayed there for 2 months, not because I was sick, but because I was waiting to be introduced to my parents. You see, I was actually adopted. I was adopted at the age of 2 months by Herbert and Rosa Jackson. I have 3 older siblings who are biologically born. I remind them that I was chosen, unlike them. They chose me. I want that one right there, right? There are three younger siblings who are also adopted. One of them is my sister Akila, and I also remind her that if it was not for me, then she wouldn't be here. They had a great time with me, and they just wanted to keep the party going, right? I had a great opportunity, education opportunity, to go to school in Brookline. I started in first grade and completed Brookline High School. And the great part about being at Brookline High School was I graduated in a class of 450 students with people from 65 different countries in my class of 450. That gave me an amazing preparation for the world. I wanted to go to Morehouse College, and I wanted to go to Morehouse College because that's where Martin Luther King went. And he went there at age 15, and I was 18, so I thought I was 3 years behind. And I got into Morehouse College, and was so amped, got my little sweatshirt, thought I was gonna be cool. And for those of you who have children who haven't gotten into college yet, there are 2 letters that you receive. One says either you got in or you didn't get in. I was very happy about that one. Well, there's a second letter that's called a financial aid package, which you may or may not be happy about. Well, my financial aid package came and I had a $1,500 financial aid package. Initially, I thought that was a good thing because I thought that's what I owed. I realized that's actually how much they gave me for a school that cost $30,000. So at the same time I had applied to Morehouse College, I applied to the University of New Hampshire, which is not quite a black college. I got up to University of New Hampshire. My parents packed up the Ford Taurus station wagon, and we got up to the school. They brought all of my clothing upstairs, and after we were done, and I was in an all-male dorm, my mom came in front of all of my friends and did only what a mom can do. She embarrassed me in front of all of my friends. There's only one way that your mom actually takes something out of the side of your mouth, ladies and gentlemen, even when you're 18 years old and you're 6'2". She licks her finger and touched my face in front of all of my friends. That was the beginning of my career at the University of New Hampshire. That same day, we went to a huge, huge room. My school was 12,000 students, and my first connection with my class was going to the field house. And so a huge group of 3,000 students who thought we were all cool. And you know, when you're in college, you think you're cool, so you kind of move slow, you're kind of cool. And I ended up walking as one of the last people out of the group into a room way bigger than this. And I walked into a hall, and I realized I didn't see any other black people. The school that I had signed up to go to, the University of New Hampshire, had 54 black students out of 12,000. And so there comes a time in your life, a difficult time in your life, when you have to make a decision, ladies and gentlemen. And I'm hearing from folks in Arlington that you are having a difficult time right now, a difficult time when you have to decide to make a difficult decision. What do you do about programs like METCO when the numbers of people are swelling in a town like Arlington? For me, my question was, what did I do as a little skinny black kid at the time at the University of New Hampshire? Did I cut and run? Did I turn around and go back to Boston where I was comfortable? Or did I stand up and face the battle ahead of me? Well, you know what? This is what I also encourage you to do, Arlington. When your schools are bursting at their seams and you're looking for places to cut, I encourage you to step up and stand up and do the right thing. And do the right thing because your character is seen in the most difficult times, not in the best. Your character is seen in the most difficult times and not in the best. And so what we did is we formed, let me get this mic right because I have to say this loud. We formed an organization called the Black Student Union. And the reason why I yell into the mic is because there was only 7 of us. But we were 7 strong. And those 7 young people, as I heard Natalie talk about, those 7 young people actually stepped forward and we got 4,000 signatures for a list of demands to our president. We wanted more non-athlete students of color at the University of New Hampshire. We wanted more women of color. I put that one in there. There was no sisters there, so brother needed to have some sisters, okay? So we also wanted a pre-orientation for students of color. And we wanted to have a psychologist to deal with the very real issues that we had at the University of New Hampshire. 4,000 signatures gotten by 7 young people. And I would tell you today that in 2016, instead of 54 black students at the University of New Hampshire, Arlington, we have 550 black students at the University of New Hampshire. The future is calling. Our time is now. Our chance is now. The only question is, will you answer the call? And I would challenge you also in your support for public schools. We live in a day and age, ladies and gentlemen, when people are introducing models of schools that will hurt public schools. Will you answer the call, Arlington, to help protect, to shore up, and to fight for our public school education? While those who claim to care about poor black and Latino kids use charter schools and the raising of the charter cap to starve public schools of the resources needed for them to thrive, Arlington, will you answer the call with me to fix a model at the State House where in Boston we received $211 million, and $104 million of that $211 million went to 8,100 students in charter schools, and $107 million was split between 57,000 students in the Boston public schools. Arlington, will you stand with me and answer that call? And all of this is occurring while 3 rich suburban white male lawyers are suing the Boston Public Schools in a civil rights suit without the NAACP, mind you, to raise the charter cap. And it should make you question where a movement, we're sitting here thinking about a man like King, who was of modest means, but where a movement that's supposed to be for equity and education gets $18 million and funnels it to an organization that didn't exist in the city of Boston 2 years ago to raise this charter cap. And I would again say to you, and these are actually the words of, I'm about to do something bad, I'm going to quote a Republican here. I don't know that those exist here. Those are, okay, I don't know that they exist out here. But what we've seen with this charter movement in places like New Orleans is they took over the whole school system before the people of New Orleans were even able to get back after Katrina. And I'm going to quote former Assistant Secretary of Education, Diane Ravitch, and she put it this way: "These heavy-handed tactics require a suspension of democracy that would not be tolerated in a white suburb, but can be done to powerless urban districts where the children are black and Latino." Ravitch told in these times, "The model requires firing all teachers, no matter their performance, allowing them to reapply for a job, and replacing them with inexperienced TFA recruits. That model requires wiping out public schools and replacing them with privately managed schools that set their own standards for admission, discipline, expulsion, and are financially opaque." We live in a day and age where we need people to not dream, ladies and gentlemen. We need you to wake up from that dream and ensure that we don't live a nightmare. What I would submit to you is that our public schools, and understand METCO and support for METCO is synonymous with support for public schools. Gene McGuire and the founders of METCO didn't come up with a brand new school system. They actually connected with public school systems where young people like myself and young people like the young people that you heard earlier could go. I would also note we have to fight income inequality. Last Friday, we found some very sobering news. The Brookings Institution came out with a study that showed that we're winning, Boston. We're winning. We are the most inequitable city in the United States of America. The top 95% of earners, $266,000. The bottom 15%, $15,000. There's a recent study that came out from the Boston Fed. It's called The Color of Wealth. I think all of you should check it out. It looks at the median net assets of a black family versus the median net assets of a white family in Boston. The median net assets of a white family in the city of Boston, $256,500. The median net assets of a black family in the city of Boston, $700, Arlington. $700. Are we talking about 1955, 1965, or 1975? No, we're talking about 2015. The future is calling. Our time is now. Our chance is now. The only question is, will you answer the call? This translates, Arlington, into what I refer to as a Mass Ave divide. My district spans from Back Bay to Roxbury. From Back Bay to Roxbury, there's a 33-year difference in life expectancy. 59.1 to over 92 years old. It is our time, and it has to be us, to actually step up and make the changes that we need, Arlington. And I don't want to leave you tonight with no hope. We have an opportunity through programs like METCO to turn this around. We have an opportunity with elections like the one that we are going to have to vote in very, very soon. Because understand, not only did Martin Luther King have a dream, there are others who have dreams, such as Donald Trump, right? He has some dreams for our country, dreams that for many of us are nightmares. We have to, in our time, step up as the young people of Arlington stepped up, as I did when I was a young person at the University of New Hampshire. We have to step up. And what does that mean? And I guess I kind of boil it down to something very personal that gives me hope. When I was running for office, 2011, I actually went into a barbershop to get my hair cut. And it's a barbershop in Eggleston Square that a lot of folks go to. It's called Lawson's. And I walked in, and I saw a friend of mine, and she was there with her 9-year-old nephew, and his name is Emmanuel. He's a cute little Puerto Rican boy. And for the fellas in the room, you know that there's a time in your life when you actually don't have to sit in a little upper seat, right? It's like coming of age day for him. And that day, I walked in, ended up connecting with his aunt, and we both got our haircuts, and she actually was running behind, and she needed a ride home. And again, this is just a little blink of what gives me hope, and hopefully it gives you a little bit of hope. So we were walking outside of the barbershop, and I was in a rush, and so this young man, little Manuel, actually stopped. And I kind of was rushing him. I said, "Let's go, man, we need to go, what's going on?" And he said, "Mr. Jackson, you know what?" I said, "Yes, Emmanuel." He said, "You look like the president." And I said, "Oh, that's so cute. I look like I ate the president. What are you talking about, man? I'm about 100 pounds more than Barack Obama." We got in the car, and I drove him home, and I drove home. And I pulled up in the driveway, filled with hope, just simply thinking what it means in 2015 at that point. When a 9-year-old Puerto Rican boy can look at a black man in a suit and see the president. What's significant about him seeing me in a suit as president, what's significant about that is not that he saw me. What's significant about it is if he can look at me and see the president, then he can look at himself and see the president. And that's the day and age, and that's the type of hope that we live in 2015, Arlington. And I would leave you simply with my theory on life. It takes 3 minutes. is simply that when it's all said and done, Arlington, we get a headstone. And on the headstone, there are 3 things that are significant: your name, the date you came here, and the date you leave. The only thing on the headstone, there's a poem by Linda Ellis about this, the only thing on the headstone that is really significant, that reflects your life, is the dash. And the dash is a question mark about what did you do to make it better? How many more young people did you open the door for when things were hard financially in your town? What did you do to inspire young people? How many people did you get a job? Gene McGuire, how many people did you educate in your time? And I would submit to you that being here tonight, that this celebration and the walk that we are making together is an indelible mark on history right now. And I just encourage Arlington to step up and do the right thing. Thank you so much.
Mr. Jackson. Mr. Jackson, could you just come right here so I have something that the... You too get a takeaway to commemorate your... And this is a book written by Robert McCursey. Robert McCursey is a veteran of ours who comes to every one of the programs, but unfortunately he and his wife are flying in, not unfortunately, but they're flying in from Florida. And so I couldn't... Oh, you're here! Oh! Mr. McCursey, the Society of Sloan Fellow Professor Emeritus at MIT, Sloan School of Management, is a co-author of A Behavioral Theory of Labor Negotiations and the award and of the award-winning The Transformation of American Industrial Relations. And last year he said, I want to give my book to the guest speaker. And we followed up on that, and Dr. McCursey has signed this over to you. And also, please accept our donations to the Tito Jackson Community Fund. You didn't have a chance to say anything about that. I did try to reach the secretary of your fund, and she and I just did a telephone tag. But could you tell us just a few words about your community fund? And please accept this as our appreciation. Yes.
So let's give it up one more time for, I'm going to call her Mother Pearl Morrison. Can we do that? Again, thank you for being here tonight. We started a community fund to actually help people in need in Roxbury. We actually do a turkey giveaway every year. We started it 5 years ago, and the funds that you were donating will help us again do as we did this past year, where we feed 4,000 families. We actually give out 4,000 turkeys to families in need around the time of Thanksgiving. The interesting piece for us is we don't care whether or not you wear a suit and tie or whether or not you have holes in your jeans or not. When it comes down to it, we know that there are people who are hurting regardless of their station or their perceived station in life. So that's the work that we do. In addition, we do two peace back to school peace tournaments in basketball as well as a block party. So that's what we do with those funds. And again, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. All right, before we have a sing-along and sing the anthem and other music that we've planned for you, I need to introduce our committee, and I need to thank, they're very good. It's in the book, so it's not tough. I need to thank all of the sponsors who have been so generous in their support of our efforts. And I would like to thank Bill Hamilton for the DVD. Are you up there, Bill? Yeah. And the Arlington Department of Public Works. Are they the ones that put the sign up? Yeah, they have the Martin Luther King sign. So we thank them very much. And we also, Arlington High School students that have assisted us this evening, and of course the entire Arlington community. Thank you very much for supporting our efforts. I understand from the committee that they are already making plans for next year. So stay tuned. I welcome the relief. There's something else I wanted to say. Oh, yes. I want to thank Kate Kubeda, who submitted the publicity for this program in The Advocate. She was a little bit disappointed because we didn't get ink in the Boston Banner, but you know, the Boston Banner, they have so many things that they have to do and so few reporters. So, but we're appreciative of the Arlington Advocate and James Sana, who is now the editor of The Advocate. Thank you very much for meeting with us and letting us explain our goals with the committee. And I would very much like to thank Ms. Lee Finner, who has been doing our programs for a few years now. So this is the product of a woman who is juggling so much on her schedule. And I want you to remember that name. Remember her name, Lee Finner, because she is in the process of producing a play. It's called A Pint of Understanding. And some of us have been following this. I didn't know it took so long to get a play from paper to stage. But we have been following Lee Finner's progress. A Pint of Understanding. It's based on the incident of Professor Henry Gates in Cambridge and the Cambridge Police Department. A Pint of Understanding. And she has captured Dr. Gates, and she has captured the police officer. If you have an opportunity, I don't know when it's going to be. Lee, this year, next year? Where's Lee? All righty, so you heard it right here. Lee Finner, thank you very much. And let's see, Ian Jackson, you have met. If you folks will come up here, we'll know who you are. Janice Spakey is our clerk. Is anyone coming up, or am I just reading? Can you at least stand? Ian Jackson, Janice Spakey, Regina Keynes, Jack Cooper, yours truly, Kate Kubeda, Sherry Hahn, Stuart Jester, who is our vice chair, Roberta Lasky, our treasurer, Ann Mathis, Neil Osborne, the president of the NAACP, Mystic Valley, and we welcome all of the folks that came from the Mystic Valley NAACP here. They had a luncheon, very successful luncheon today, and they came right over to support us. Lee Finner, Reverend Michael Thatcher, Robin Gottlieb, and Stephen Pereira. So would you give them a round of applause? Okay, and also would you kindly notice these, I believe these flyers are out on the table. This is Unconscious Bias. Thursday, April 17th. The doors open at 7 o'clock here at Arlington Town Hall. I think it's something that this audience in particular would be interested in attending. And did the display get here from the students? The students, some students were going to have a display. Did that get here? It's in the back. All right, would you take an opportunity to look at the students' display? Would you also take an opportunity to look at our graduates, their thoughts and ideas? And now, I'm going to ask the Myrtle Baptist, which is in West Newton, the Myrtle Baptist Inspirational Ensemble. Okay, and now how are we doing this? Are you going to do the sing-along and then lift every voice? How are we going to do this? Does everyone have the sing-along?
We're going to fold them all together because the night is young.
Well, let's get it. Let's let it rip.
Okay.
You all have already exhausted me way back at the beginning.
Okay. 9:39.
9:39, okay.
And Miles' wife has just called me. And I know nothing.
That's right. No, nothing.
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
Stand, please. Are you done? I'm sorry.
No, I want you to tell us what we're going to do.
I was a part of a volunteer busing program out of Oakland, California.
Ah.
In the late 60s, early 70s. It had no name, but there was a brave person by the name of Dr. Marcus Foster who was determined to make sure that those of us who you can't hear me?
Here, come over here. This one's live. Yeah.
I apologize. I was saying earlier that I was part of a volunteer busing program back in Oakland, California in the late 60s, early 70s. Of course, I was only 6 years old, 2 years old. But the bottom line is that there was another brave person who, in the spirit of Dr. King, led this challenge. And we were never afforded the opportunity to thank him formally, because a year after I graduated from high school, Dr. Foster was assassinated. Many of you might recall the SLA movement activities out of Oakland and San Francisco. Well, because of the fact that someone like me was allowed to attend the high school in the Oakland Hills, some of the parents were very upset about that. So they wanted to make sure that we all had ID cards. And the late Dr. Foster said, that's not necessary. These are our children. They belong to the city. They belong to the community. They don't need ID cards. So after about 2 years of that fight, he said, if that will make you feel good, we'll issue ID cards to the high school students. The evening that vote took place, the board approved the identification cards for the high school students, and out in the parking lot were two assassins who took Dr. Foster's life with cyanide bullets. So I'm a benefactor, a good one. I went on to college 3 years, part of the TRIO program, Up to Bound program, finished my undergraduate degree in 3 years, finished at Stanford that fourth year with the master's, and by the age of 25, I had a doctorate degree from Stanford. And I say that not to brag or to boast, but to say that it takes the lives of people like Dr. King and Dr. Foster to make this transition take place in our lives. And I'm expecting each student who stood up here, who was an alum, took their bag and walked down and pranced down and very happy. We're expecting you to give something back. per Council Jackson's comment. You have to. We have to make that bridge for our students to cross, and I'm expecting you, and I'm hoping and praying that you will do that. I still have a lot to give back too. I'll talk to you about that later, but thank you so much for supporting this organization, this effort. And I know when my grandmother would see me off to the high school, she'd sing a song that was very touching. It was very simple. You've heard it before. And she closed the door as I run to the bus. She said, "He's got the whole world in his hands. He's got the whole world in his hands. He's got the whole world in his hands. He's got the whole world in his hands." You and me. He's got you and me in his hands. He's got you and me. In his hands, he's got you and me. In his hands, he's got the whole world in his hands. 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 That was for Mama. Lift every voice. Remain standing as we sing through the Black National Anthem. The lyrics are in the back of the program. Lift every voice and sing. Mr. Cooper will lead us in that.
The listening skies, let it resound out of the rolling sea. Sing a song full of the faith and the death and the God. Sing a song
unborn had died, yet with a steady beat, have not our weary feet come to the place for which our fathers died. We have come over a way that with tears has been watered. We have come treading a path through the blood of the slaughter. Out of the gloomy, till now we stand at last, with the white gleam of our bright star is past. One of our weary years, God of our silent tears,
you. Thank you very much. And now to close this evening, I would like to welcome to the podium Reverend Peter Beckwith from the Trinity Baptist Church in Arlington, who will deliver the benediction. Thank you very much again. Good Lord willing, and the creek don't rise, we'll get back here next year. Reverend, how are you? Thank you so much. Good. Nice to meet you. I haven't been to your church, but I'm going to get down there.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Yeah.
As many of you know, Dr. King was a Baptist preacher. And so much of what he said to us, unbeknownst to many, came directly from Hebrew and Christian scripture. And so in closing tonight, I would like to use those words. First from Mark chapter 8. Then Jesus called the crowd to him along with his disciples and said, "If anyone would come after me, he must deny himself and take up his cross and follow me. For whoever wants to save his life will lose it. But whoever loses his life for me and for the gospel will save it. What good is it for a man to gain the whole world, yet forfeit his soul?" And then the prophet Amos, speaking to God's people on God's behalf, "Take away from me the noise of your songs, the melody of your harps. I will not listen. But let justice roll down like waters, and righteousness like an ever-flowing stream." And finally, Paul to the Ephesians pens these words. My response is to get down on my knees before the Father, this magnificent Father who parcels out heaven and earth, and asks him to strengthen you by his Spirit, not a brute strength, but a glorious inner strength, that Christ may live in you as you open the door and invite him in, and ask him that with both feet planted firmly on love, you'll be able to take in with all Christians the extravagant dimensions of Christ's love. Reach out and experience the breadth, test its length, plumb the depths, rise to the heights, live full lives, full in the fullness of God. God can do anything, you know, far more than you could ever imagine or guess or request in your wildest dreams. He does it not by pushing us around, but by working within us, his Spirit deeply and gently within us. Glory to God in the church. Glory to God in the Messiah, in Jesus. Glory down all generations. I would add glory in Arlington, in all here who labor for peace and for justice. Glory through all millennia. Oh yes, glory. Amen and amen.
I do believe we shall overcome someday. Let's sing together. We'll walk hand in hand. We'll walk hand in hand. We'll walk hand in hand someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe we shall overcome someday. Go in peace.
Thank you. Good night.
God
bless you.